Deep in the rainforests of Central America, pyramids taller than a 10-story building still pierce the jungle canopy. For centuries, we believed only a scattered few farmers had ever lived beneath these trees. Then lasers stripped the forest away, and 60,000 hidden structures blinked into view. The Maya were not a small people. They numbered somewhere between 7 and 11 million. They invented the mathematical idea of zero and wrote it as a simple curling shell. They tracked the planet Venus so precisely, their calendars stayed accurate across thousands of years. Their kings waged proxy wars through vassal cities, betraying brothers and beheading rival lords. And when people say the Maya mysteriously vanished, they are simply completely wrong. Millions of their descendants still farm the same land and speak the same languages today. This is the story of 3,000 years of Maya civilization, from first maize to last king, from mud and thatch villages to the glittering city of Chichen Itza, from the burning of their sacred books to the survival of their calendar. This is the entire history of the Maya. The story begins around 8,000 years ago along the warm Pacific coast of Central America. Small bands of hunters and gatherers began to settle in one place rather than roam. They tamed a wild grass called teosinte, slowly breeding it into golden maize. Maize, beans, and squash became the sacred trinity of crops that fed every later city. The Maya believed humans themselves had been molded by the gods from maize dough. In these early villages, they learned to shape wet clay and bake it hard in fire. The first simple pottery bowls and jars appeared, changing how food was stored and cooked. Tiny fired clay figurines of women and animals were pressed by hand and left as offerings. Villages clustered near rivers and coastlines where fish, salt, and fertile soil were plentiful. Generation by generation, families cleared the forest and planted their fields of maize. With full granaries, populations swelled and settlements grew larger and more permanent. Leaders emerged to organize planting, trade, and the first shared religious rituals. The humble maize farmer had, without knowing it, laid the foundation of a civilization. By around 1,000 years before Christ, villages were swelling into the first true cities. Deep in the swampy lowlands of northern Guatemala rose the giant city of El Mirador. It sprawled across roughly 16 square kilometers, a metropolis hidden in dense jungle. At its heart stood La Danta, one of the largest pyramids by volume ever built. The Maya raised immense triadic pyramids, 3 temples crowning a single towering platform. Raised stone causeways ran arrow-straight for miles, linking El Mirador to neighboring cities. Tens of thousands of laborers hauled limestone blocks without metal tools or wheels. Great masks of the gods, molded in plaster, flanked the stairways in brilliant red. This was centuries before the famous classic cities, yet already monumental in scale. Kings commanded armies of farmers to quarry, carry, and stack millions of tons of rock. Trade in jade, obsidian, and quetzal feathers flowed along the jungle highways. El Mirador proved the Maya could build on a scale to rival any ancient people. The age of the god kings had truly begun. As cities grew, the Maya developed one of the only true writing systems of the Americas. At San Bartolo, painters left glyphs dating to the 3rd century before Christ. Their script was not an alphabet, but hundreds of intricate picture signs called glyphs. Each block of glyphs could spell a sound, a word, or a whole royal name. Scribes recorded the deeds of kings, the movements of stars, and the births of gods. The Maya were also among the first people on Earth to invent the number 0. They wrote this revolutionary idea of nothing as a simple curling seashell. With 0, they built a place value system, counting in bundles of 20. A single dot meant 1, a bar meant 5, and the shell held it all together. This let them calculate dates and eclipses reaching millions of years into the past. In their plazas, they raised tall carved stone slabs we now call stelae, but the Maya called them T-ton, meaning stone trees, planted to glorify their kings. Knowledge itself had become a weapon and a monument of power. Then, at the height of its glory, the preclassic world began to unravel. Around the 1st century after Christ, the great city of El Mirador faltered. One by one, Its towering pyramids fell silent, and the causeways emptied. The Maya had cut down vast stretches of forest to fire their lime plaster. Stripped of trees, the thin soils eroded and washed away in the rains. At the same time, the climate itself shifted, turning slowly and cruelly drier. The swamps that watered their fields shrank, and harvests began to fail. Hunger and unrest spread, as the land could no longer feed its crowded cities. Populations scattered, abandoning the mighty stone temples to the encroaching jungle. Yet the Maya did not disappear. They adapted and survived the crisis. Survivors dug reservoirs and canals to capture and store every drop of rain. They terraced hillsides and raised fields above the wetlands to farm more intensively. From the ashes of the preclassic, a new and even brighter age would rise. Far to the northwest lay Teotihuacan, a vast foreign metropolis in the Valley of Mexico. Its pyramids and avenues dwarfed anything the Maya had yet built. In the year 378, its power reached deep into the Maya world. A warlord named Siaj, K-adjective, whose name means born of fire, marched into the lowlands. On the very day he arrived at Tikal, the city's old king died. Ancient inscriptions record the event with chilling and deliberate coincidence. Teotihuacan swept away the old dynasty and installed a ruler loyal to itself. The new king wore the goggle-eyed mask of the Teotihuacan war god. Foreign spear throwers and feathered warriors now stood beside Maya lords. Backed by this distant superpower, Tikal rose to dominate the central lowlands. Its influence rippled outward, reshaping the politics of dozens of rival cities. This single intervention set the stage for centuries of warfare to come. The classic age of the Maya had arrived, and it would be forged in fire. For the next few centuries, two great cities loomed over all the others. In the south stood mighty Tikal, its pyramids clawing above the rainforest. To the north lay its bitter rival, the serpent kingdom of Calakmul. Each ruled not a single empire, but a sprawling web of allied cities. Historians call them superpowers, locked in a cold war across the jungle. Rather than fight each other directly, they waged war through vassal states. Kings sealed alliances with royal marriages, gifts, and sacred visits. Calakmul, the Snake Kingdom, patiently encircled Tikal with loyal client cities. Its lords installed puppet kings and turned Tikal's own neighbors against it. Warriors clashed in the forests, taking captives to be paraded and sacrificed. Defeat meant a rival king dragged in ropes to a distant enemy plaza. For over a century, Tikal was strangled and eclipsed by the Snake Kings. The whole Maya lowlands were drawn into this endless struggle for supremacy. Nowhere was this rivalry more treacherous than in the small city of Dos Pilas. In the year 629, Tikal founded it as a loyal outpost. They sent a 4-year-old prince of the royal Tikal bloodline to rule it. He was meant to guard Tikal's western flank against the Snake Kingdom. But Calakmul's armies grew strong and marched against the little frontier city. The young king was captured, his outpost overrun by the Snake King's forces. Facing death, he made a stunning choice that shocks historians to this day. Instead of dying for Tikal, he switched sides and served Calakmul. He became a loyal vassal of the very enemy he had been sent to fight. Then he turned his warriors against his own brother, the king of Tikal. Brother waged brutal war on brother across the rainforest for years. His betrayal helped the Snake Kingdom tighten its noose around Tikal itself. In the Maya world, blood loyalty could shatter in the face of raw power. Far to the southeast, the elegant city of Kapan rose beside a green river valley. It was famed for its sculptors, its ball court, and its towering carved stelae. Its ruler bore the grand name Uxaklajun, UB adjective, or HK adjective, a WIIL, 18 Rabbit. For decades, 18 Rabbit reigned in splendor over a prosperous kingdom. Below him sat a smaller vassal city called Quirigara, ruled by a client king. That vassal, secretly backed by distant Calakmul, plotted against his overlord. In April of 738, the unthinkable happened. The vassal seized the great king, 18 Rabbit, in a sudden strike. He dragged the captured lord back to Quirigara as a prize of war. There, in front of the crowds, the mighty king was publicly beheaded. It was a humiliation almost unheard of. A great king executed by his servant. Kapan reeled from the blow, its confidence and its dynasty deeply shaken. Even the grandest Maya city could fall in a single treacherous afternoon. Beyond war, the Maya were bound together by a sacred and brutal ball game. Nearly every city had a stone court shaped like a long capital I. Players struck a heavy ball of solid rubber, weighing several kilograms. Astonishingly, they were forbidden from touching it with their hands or feet. Instead, they used their hips, knees, shoulders, and elbows to keep it flying. The ball moved so fast that Spanish observers compared it to lightning. In some versions, players tried to send it through a vertical stone hoop. That hoop could be set 6 meters or more above the court floor. Scoring was so difficult a single goal could end the entire game. Padded leather protected their hips, yet the ball still broke bones and killed. The game reenacted the myth of the hero twins defeating the lords of death. Sometimes the losing team or captured enemies were sacrificed to the gods. Sport, religion, and human sacrifice met on the same blood-stained court. To order their world, the Maya built some of the most precise calendars in history. They ran several cycles at once, meshing together like the gears of a machine. A 260-day sacred round guided rituals and prophecy. A 365-day count tracked the farming year and the sun. Above them all ran the long count, tallying days since a mythic creation. That creation was fixed in what we call 3114 BC. The long count bundled time into great cycles, called B adjective a K adjective T UNS. On the 21st of December, 2012, 13B adjective a K adjective T UNS were completed. Modern doomsayers claimed this marked the prophesied end of the world, but the Maya predicted no apocalypse. It was simply a cycle rolling over. Like a car's odometer, the count clicked forward and time carried on. One carved workshop shows they imagined time stretching trillions of years ahead. For the Maya, the universe was not ending, merely turning another vast page. At the heart of Maya religion lay a terror of sacred sinkholes called cenotes. These deep natural wells were seen as gateways to the watery underworld. At Chichen Itza, a great sacred cenote swallowed gold, jade, and human offerings. For a century, legend claimed young virgin girls were thrown into its depths. But modern DNA testing has completely overturned that romantic old story. Of 64 victims recovered nearby, every single one was a boy. They were male children and adolescents, not the maidens of the myth. Even more startling, the scientists found 2 pairs of identical twins. This echoed the hero twins of Maya legend, who descended into the underworld. Those mythic twins were sacrificed, and then miraculously reborn from death. The priests were reenacting sacred scripture in flesh and blood. Children were chosen to walk the same path as the gods themselves. Behind the beautiful temples lay a religion soaked in ritual and death. Then, in the 9th century, the glittering classic Maya world came crashing down. Across the southern lowlands, the great cities fell silent one after another. Kings stopped raising stelae, and the sacred count of days went unrecorded. Palaces emptied, plazas cracked, and the jungle crept back over the temples. Several disasters struck the Maya together in a devastating combination. Centuries of constant warfare had exhausted the rival kingdoms and their people. Populations had swollen far beyond what the fragile soils could feed. Then came a series of the worst droughts in thousands of years. Rains failed for years on end, and the reservoirs slowly ran dry. Starving farmers lost faith in god-kings who could no longer summon rain. The whole system of divine kingship simply collapsed and was abandoned. Within a few generations, mighty Tikal and its rivals stood empty. The heart of the classic Maya world had gone dark forever. Yet the Maya did not vanish. Their center of gravity simply moved north. On the flat, dry plains of the Yucatan Peninsula, new cities flourished. Greatest of them all rose Chichen Itza, a cosmopolitan hub of trade and pilgrimage. Its stepped pyramid, El Castillo, was a calendar rendered in solid stone. Twice a year, Sunlight casts a serpent of shadow slithering down its stairs. Chichen mixed Maya traditions with influences from central Mexico, far away. Seagoing canoes traded salt, cotton, honey, and slaves around the whole peninsula. After Chichen faded, the walled city of Mayapan took up the mantle of power. From behind its stone walls, one dynasty tried to rule much of the north, but it governed through fragile alliances of squabbling noble families. Around 1450, Mayapan tore itself apart in revolt. The land fractured into many small, quarrelsome rival provinces. It was this divided Maya world that unknowingly awaited the coming of Spain. In the year 1511, the first Spaniards washed ashore by accident. A Spanish ship was wrecked on the reefs of the Caribbean Sea. A handful of survivors clung to a boat and drifted to the Yucatan coast. Local Maya lords seized the exhausted, starving castaways at once. Most were sacrificed upon the altars of the Maya gods. Only 2 survived, and one chose to live among the Maya as one of them. He married a Maya woman and tattooed his body in their fashion. A few years later, larger Spanish expeditions began to probe the coastline. Their ships appeared like floating mountains on the eastern horizon. The Maya met these strangers not with awe, but with showers of arrows. Fierce battles erupted on the beaches, and both sides took heavy losses. The Spanish, however, carried an invisible weapon deadlier than any sword. Old world diseases would soon race ahead of the conquerors themselves. The true invasion came from the conqueror of the Aztecs, Hernán Cortés. He sent his ruthless Captain Pedro de Alvarado south into the Maya highlands. Alvarado led Spanish cavalry clad in steel and mounted on terrifying horses. With him marched thousands of central Mexican warriors, hungry for Maya plunder. In 1524, they fell upon the powerful K-ejective ejective kingdom. The K-ejective ejective met them in open battle, led by the hero Tekun Uman. Legend says Tekun Uman was cut down by Alvarado in single combat. The Spanish then lured the K-ejective ejective lords into their capital, Q-ejective UMRRK-ej. There they seized the kings, burned them alive, and torched the city. The following year they besieged the Maya fortress of Zacualo. Its defenders held out until starvation forced a bitter surrender. One by one, the proud highland capitals fell to steel and disease. Yet the conquest of the Maya would prove far slower than that of the Aztecs. As soldiers seized the land, priests set out to seize the Maya soul. Spanish friars built churches and forced the Maya to abandon their old gods. The most zealous of them was a bishop named Diego de Landa. In 1562, he uncovered hidden idols in caves near Mani. Enraged, he launched a brutal inquisition against the local Maya people. He gathered together their sacred painted books, called codices. These bark paper screenfolds held their history, astronomy, and rituals. Landa condemned them as the work of the devil and lies. In a single great bonfire, he burned more than 40 precious codices. 20,000 sacred images went up in smoke on that day. Centuries of accumulated Maya knowledge vanished in the flames. Today, only a mere handful of Maya books survive anywhere on Earth. In one afternoon of fire, a civilization's library was almost erased. Even so, the Maya refused to surrender their freedom quietly. Deep in the forests, unconquered communities resisted for nearly 2 centuries. They rose in rebellion, burning the mission churches forced upon them. In 1639, Maya rebels torched churches across Belize. In 1684, Col Maya sacrificed 3 Franciscan friars. It was a defiant protest against forced resettlement and conversion. Meanwhile, invisible plagues ravaged the Maya far worse than any army. A terrible salmonella epidemic, the Coccolistli, killed multitudes across the land. The last free Maya kingdom held out on an island called Nojpatane. It sat hidden on a lake deep in the Petane rainforest. In 1697, Spanish forces stormed across the water. Nojpatane fell, and the final independent Maya kingdom was extinguished. After nearly 200 years, the whole Maya world was under Spanish rule. And yet, despite everything, the Maya never truly vanished. They survived conquest, plague, and the burning of their sacred books. The deadly epidemics even reshaped their very bodies over generations. Survivors passed down an immune gene that guards against salmonella today. The Maya had been genetically forged by the pandemics they endured. In modern times, lasers have rewritten everything we thought we knew. In 2018, LiDAR scans stripped the jungle from northern Guatemala. They revealed 60,000 hidden structures, causeways, and fortresses. The Maya population had been vastly larger than anyone imagined. Some 7 to 11 million people once filled these lowlands. Today, millions of Maya still live across Mexico and Central America. They speak Mayan languages and keep the ancient calendars alive. The Maya did not fall. They endured, and they are still here.